What happens when a mainstream sports media giant gets caught red-handed trying to erase a young quarterback's greatest triumph right in front of millions of fans? This is no longer just internet gossip, and this is definitely not a fan-made conspiracy theory. A major training camp tracker went live for the entire football world to see, boldly claiming Shedeur Sanders walked off the field with 0 touchdowns during a high-stakes joint practice against an elite Buffalo Bills defense. But within hours, an undeniable digital receipt slapped that report with an official, crowdsourced correction that completely shattered their narrative. Shedeur didn't just score once. He threw 2 undeniable touchdowns, including a jaw-dropping 50-yard laser that silenced the loudest defense in the league. When the tape surfaced, the public realized that the most explosive play of the entire afternoon had been completely wiped from the public record. Before we pull back the curtain on the sideline audio and the videotape they didn't want you to see, I have one quick question for the true football minds watching right now. If you believe sports media routinely manipulates stats to protect established narratives, type the word truth in the comments right now. If you think this was just an honest, chaotic tracking mistake, drop a football emoji down below. Let's see who truly understands the psychological games being played behind the scenes, because what happened right after that 50-yard bomb will change how you view training camp forever.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
The digital paper trail does not lie, and in today's hyper-connected football landscape, the era of legacy media controlling the narrative without accountability is officially over. When the original practice tracker was published across major social media feeds, it painted a bleak, uninspiring picture for Shedeur Sanders during an ultra-competitive joint practice against the Buffalo Bills. The stat line was printed in cold, unforgiving black and white: 0 touchdowns, mediocre efficiency, and an overall performance that seemed to justify every negative draft projection and talking head critique that has followed him since he entered the professional spotlight. For casual fans simply scrolling through their feeds during a busy afternoon, that single graphic became settled reality in a fraction of a second. It immediately fueled thousands of debates, generated sensationalist sports talk segments, and gave critics the exact ammunition they were desperately searching for to claim that the rookie could not handle the speed, disguised coverages, and physical complexity of a true championship-caliber NFL defense. But when thousands of die-hard football fanatics, film analysts, and dedicated supporters actually looked at the underlying video evidence coming out of that same practice session, the math simply did not add up. Within hours of that misleading graphic going viral, something extraordinary happened on the platform. A bright, glaring community note was officially attached directly beneath the media post, serving as a permanent public indictment of the original reporting. The note plainly stated that the tracker was factually inaccurate, explicitly detailing that Sanders had delivered at least 2 verified touchdown strikes during that high-stakes session against Buffalo's primary defensive unit. The first was an electric, well-timed screen pass executed in the red zone to rookie playmaker Casey Conception, where Sanders recognized the blitz, set his feet under pressure, and delivered the ball with pinpoint accuracy. The second was an absolute work of art, a towering 50-yard vertical touchdown strike to receiver Malachi Corley that beat the secondary over the top and left the defensive backs staring back at their own sideline in utter disbelief. This was not a minor adjustment or a fractional error on passing yardage. This was the total, wholesale omission of the 2 most critical, high-leverage scoring plays of an entire training camp session. When a young quarterback is fighting for positioning, fighting for reps, and battling the massive weight of national scrutiny, erasing scoring drives from the public ledger is a direct attack on their perceived development. In the modern sports ecosystem, casual observers do not read full scouting reports or watch uncut coaching film. They look at the tracker numbers, digest the summary graphics, and form permanent opinions based on whatever stat sheet crosses their timeline. When those numbers are fundamentally flawed, it warps the public discourse, influences betting markets, and shapes the national storyline in a way that can take weeks or months to undo. This is precisely why serious football enthusiasts have completely stopped relying on shallow mainstream television snippets and started finding real truth here on Gridiron Ground. When you subscribe to Gridiron Ground, your mind becomes completely immune to lazy sports spin because you choose to study the actual tape rather than the corporate narrative. Your brain begins to recognize the hidden patterns, the subtle media biases, and the technical realities of what actually happens between the white lines. If you value raw, uncompromising gridiron film study, hit that subscribe button right now to lock in with the sharpest.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Most analytical football community on YouTube. Subscribing to Gridiron Ground ensures that you are always armed with verified facts before stepping into any sports debate. Because the deeper you look into why these specific two plays were wiped from the public record, the more you realize that this was not just a simple oversight. When a platform's built-in fact-checking mechanism steps in to override a verified sports account, it means the evidence was so overwhelming and so irrefutable that even neutral observers could not ignore the discrepancy. Thousands of people watched the original post rack up hundreds of thousands of impressions, spreading an inaccurate narrative to fans who will never return to read the correction. That is how reputations are subtly altered in the modern sports landscape, and that is why independent verification is more vital today than it has ever been in football history. The fact that this correction had to come from the collective effort of everyday viewers rather than an internal editorial retraction from the media outlet itself speaks volumes about the state of modern sports journalism. It proved that the public is no longer willing to accept whatever box score is handed to them, especially when independent cameras are actively capturing every single snap from multiple vantage points. As the online football community began cross-referencing timestamps, video clips, and sideline reports, the focus quickly shifted from the broken stat sheet to the electrifying events that actually occurred on the practice field. What the cameras captured right before that 50-yard strike makes this entire situation 10 times more explosive. And that brings us directly to the shocking sideline confrontation that started this whole firestorm in the first place. To truly understand why the erasure of that 50-yard touchdown strike caused such massive outrage across the entire football community, you have to rewind the tape to the exact moment that drive began. Joint practices in the NFL are notoriously hostile, high-pressure environments. Veterans use these controlled scrimmages to establish mental dominance, test the physical courage of young players, and aggressively talk trash to see who folds under the intense psychological weight of professional competition. On this specific afternoon, Buffalo Bills veteran safety CJ Gardner Johnson, a player widely recognized across the league for his aggressive psychological warfare and non-stop vocal taunting, made it his personal mission to get inside Shedeur Sanders' head. Multiple sideline reports and eyewitness accounts confirmed that Gardner Johnson was actively pacing the boundaries, repeatedly barking at Sanders and calling him a checkdown king. The insult was calculated, deliberate, and designed to strike a nerve. For months, national critics and draft evaluators had pushed an unverified narrative that Sanders was simply an overly cautious game manager who inflated his completion percentages by taking safe, short-yardage throws while refusing to challenge defenses deep down the field. Gardner Johnson was intentionally weaponizing that exact national talking point right in front of the entire roster, trying to bait the young quarterback into making an emotional, reckless mistake into double coverage. The atmosphere on that sideline was electric. Every camera lens was pointed at the huddle. Every coach on both staffs was watching Sanders' body language. and the entire defensive secondary was crowding the line of scrimmage, daring him to take a shot deep into their coverage shell. In high-pressure moments like that, a young quarterback has two choices. You can either shrink under the verbal assault, tuck your head, and continue throwing 5-yard out routes to avoid making a catastrophic error, or you can stand your ground, trust your preparation, and take the top off the defense. Sanders did not flinch. He did not engage in a screaming match, and he did not lose his composure. Instead, he stepped up to the line of scrimmage, surveyed the defensive alignment, and identified the single high safety look that the Bills were disguising. He took the snap, executed a flawless 3-step drop, held the safety with his eyes, and unleashed an absolute cannon of a throw down the right sideline. The ball traveled over 50 yards in the air with pinpoint accuracy, dropping straight into the outstretched arms of Malachi Corley, who had cleanly beaten his defender on a vertical go route. Corley secured the catch in stride, crossed the goal line completely untouched, and left the entire Buffalo secondary standing in absolute silence. It was an instant, emphatic, and undeniable answer to the loudest trash talker on the field. It was the exact type of electrifying, highlight reel play that defines a franchise quarterback, elevates an entire offense, and silences an opposing defense in one single snap. The sideline exploded, the offensive unit mobbed their quarterback, and the Checked on King narrative was instantly vaporized in front of everyone present. Yet, when the official media tracker hit the internet just hours later, that 50-yard answer to Gardner Johnson's trash talk had completely vanished from the stat sheet. It was charted as if the play had never occurred, stripping the quarterback of the public validation he had legitimately earned against one of the most respected defensive units in football. If you only read the initial report, you would have believed that Sanders folded under the pressure, struggled to move the ball, and failed to produce a single scoring drive. You would have completely missed the defining moment of the entire practice, a moment where a young player stared down an elite NFL veteran's taunts and delivered an absolute strike right through the heart of their defense. The timing of this omission felt entirely too convenient to be ignored by anyone who actually understands how sports storylines are manufactured and distributed. When an athlete delivers a cinematic, storybook response to intense public criticism, that play should lead every highlight show in the country. It should be dissected on morning talk shows.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Shared across digital platforms and used as a benchmark for the player's development under live fire. Wiping that specific throw from the official record did not just alter a practice stat line. It actively robbed the football world of a legitimate athletic triumph. The contrast between what actually happened on that grass and what was typed onto that social media post is the exact reason why fans refused to let the issue slide. When the public demanded an explanation for why the biggest play of the day was completely erased, the media tracker finally attempted to defend the error. But the excuse they offered only made the controversy infinitely worse. As the online backlash reached a fever pitch and thousands of frustrated fans demanded answers, the individual responsible for charting the tracker finally broke their silence. But rather than issuing a standard professional apology or quietly updating the stat line to reflect the confirmed reality of the field, the response was surprisingly defensive and dismissive. The tracker account posted a reply filled with laughing emojis, telling angry supporters that their mentions were blowing up as usual, and instructing them to go yell at the practice referees instead of complaining about the published numbers. The tracker attempted to justify the zero-touchdown report by relying on an extremely specific, legalistic defense regarding the red zone score to Casey Conception. The explanation claimed that while the screen pass to Conception certainly looked like a score in real time, the on-field practice officials had technically blown their whistles dead before the receiver actually broke the plane of the goal line. According to the tracker, because the whistle blew early, the play was ruled a dead ball rep or an incompletion by the letter of the law on the field, meaning it could not officially be recorded as a passing touchdown in the practice ledger. Let us examine that specific claim with complete analytical fairness. In the chaotic, fast-moving environment of an NFL training camp, officiating is notoriously informal and highly conservative. Practice referees routinely blow plays dead early to protect skilled players from devastating collisions and prevent unnecessary injuries before the regular season even begins. If an official genuinely blew the play dead before the ball crossed the plane, charting the play as an incomplete rep is technically understandable from a strict, literal charting perspective. It is an imperfect decision, but it is at least an argument rooted in the physical events that played out during that specific snap. However, that convenient whistle defense instantly disintegrates the moment you apply it to the second touchdown. The 50-yard bomb to Malachi Corley had no early whistle, no disputed penalty flag, no defensive holding call, and no ambiguous ruling whatsoever. Corley caught the ball cleanly in stride, maintained complete separation from the defensive back, and crossed the goal line completely uncontested. There was no whistle on the planet that could justify wiping a clean 50-yard deep shot off the board. By hiding behind the whistle controversy of the first play, the tracker completely ignored the indefensible omission of the second play. They used a debatable technicality on a short red zone rep to distract from the complete erasure of a massive, undeniable vertical bomb. This exact dynamic is why true football students are refusing to be spoon-fed corporate box scores and are migrating in droves to Gridiron Ground. When you join the Gridiron Ground movement, you are subscribing to a relentless pursuit of the truth, where we break down the game from the inside out and refuse to let lazy excuses slide. When you hit that subscribe button for Gridiron Ground, you are training your football intellect to look past the superficial headlines, past the laughing emojis, and straight into the actual tape. If you have not yet aligned yourself with this channel, take a second right now, hit that subscribe button, and turn your notifications all the way up so you never miss an unfiltered breakdown. Subscribing to Gridiron Ground makes you part of an elite community that values accuracy over convenience. Because when you analyze how sports information is consumed, selective reporting is often far more dangerous than outright fabrication. When a media outlet chooses to strictly enforce technical rules on one play to discount a touchdown, but completely turns a blind eye to an explosive 50-yard score on another play, it creates a pattern of inconsistency that naturally breeds suspicion. Fans are not irrational for questioning the motives behind reporting like this. They are simply applying basic logic to a situation that makes no sense on the surface. If you are going to act as the definitive record keeper for a public training camp battle, your standards must remain consistent from the first snap to the final whistle. The failure to acknowledge the Corley touchdown while hiding behind an officiating technicality on the conception play completely destroyed the tracker's credibility. It turned what could have been a minor, forgivable logging error into a full-blown controversy about journalistic standards, narrative control, and the responsibilities of modern sports beat writers. It proved that without independent video sources to cross-examine these reports, fans are completely at the mercy of individual trackers who can easily shape the perception of a quarterback competition with a single tweet. But fortunately for the football world, traditional beat writers no longer hold a monopoly over what the public is allowed to see. And the footage that surfaced next would completely dismantle the legacy media's control over this story. For decades, traditional sports networks and local beat writers held an absolute monopoly over what fans were allowed to see and believe from the training camp practice field. If an established reporter decided that a young quarterback struggled during red zone drills or looked overwhelmed against complex defensive looks, That opinion.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Opinion quickly became the gospel truth across the entire city, simply because ordinary fans had no way of verifying what actually happened behind the closed gates of the facility. The public was entirely dependent on the personal biases, subjective impressions, and selective memory of a handful of journalists sitting in the bleachers with notepads. But the Sanders family has spent the last 5 years completely dismantling that outdated media structure, and this recent tracker controversy was the ultimate proof of why that disruption is terrifying the old guard of sports journalism. While legacy trackers were busily typing up their zero-touchdown box scores, Dillon Sanders Jr. was quietly standing on the sideline with his high-definition camera running for the well-off media network. Dillon Jr. does not operate under the constraints of corporate editorial boards, television network agendas, or traditional media access agreements. His camera captures raw, unfiltered, continuous practice footage from an intimate, ground-level perspective that traditional broadcast crews rarely provide. Within hours of the mainstream tracker hitting social media, well-off media published crisp, unambiguous video of the entire sequence for millions of viewers to examine at their own pace. Viewers around the world were able to watch the play develop from the initial pre-snap read, track Shedeur's eyes manipulating the deep safety, watch the pristine arm mechanics on the deep release, and witness the ball drop effortlessly into Corley's hands for the score. The release of that footage completely neutralized the power of the legacy tracker. It transformed what would have been a long, drawn-out debate about subjective reporting into an open and shut case of objective visual reality. Fans did not have to take someone's word for it. They could see the grass, they could hear the pads popping, and they could watch the ball hit the receiver's hands with their own eyes. This dynamic has introduced an unprecedented level of transparency to modern football, allowing the public to bypass traditional media gatekeepers entirely. When independent creators and digital platforms provide direct access to the field, it forces legacy institutions to either elevate their standards of accuracy or face immediate public embarrassment. Having multiple camera angles and competing media outlets is the greatest asset an NFL fan base can ask for. It eliminates the ability of any single beat writer or bias tracker to single-handedly destroy a young player's public standing with a careless or skewed stat line. In the past, a quarterback without institutional media backing could easily have their career derailed by persistent negative coverage that went completely unchecked. Today, independent digital platforms serve as a vital counterweight, ensuring that on-field performance is preserved and displayed regardless of what traditional outlets choose to report. This democratization of football media has created a profound psychological shift in how fans interact with sports news. Supporters are no longer passive consumers who blindly accept whatever narrative is broadcast during the evening news. They are active investigators who cross-reference footage, analyze player mechanics, and demand undeniable proof before accepting any sweeping conclusions about a player's development. The well-off media footage did not just correct the record for Shedeur Sanders. It demonstrated the immense power of direct-to-consumer sports documentation. It showed that when you give fans access to raw reality, corporate spin loses all of its power. Traditional beat writers are finding themselves in an increasingly uncomfortable position, where their daily reports are being audited in real time by millions of educated viewers armed with high-definition video evidence. This tension between legacy media gatekeepers and modern independent creators is reshaping the entire sports landscape, creating a new standard where truth is determined by the tape rather than the press pass. But as the visual evidence spread across every corner of the internet, A much darker and more contentious question began circulating through the football world about why this mistake was allowed to happen in the first place. Was this simply the result of an overwhelmed reporter trying to keep up with a fast-moving practice, or was it something far more deliberate? Whenever an error of this magnitude is publicly exposed, the conversation naturally splits into two distinct, competing theories. On one side, a passionate and vocal segment of the fan base firmly believes that this tracker omission was an act of deliberate narrative sabotage. The argument suggests that certain elements within traditional sports media have a pre-existing bias against Shedeur Sanders, stemming from his unconventional rise through Jackson State in Colorado, his massive social media presence, and his outspoken family brand. Those who subscribe to this theory believe that local and national media members actively look for ways to diminish his achievements in order to protect established veteran quarterbacks or validate their own pre-draft criticisms. To these fans, erasing 2 touchdowns, including a 50-yard vertical strike, was not an accident. It was a conscious effort to keep the quarterback competition tilted toward the status quo. On the other side of the debate lies the theory of sheer human incompetence and the inherent chaos of live football charting. Tracking an NFL joint practice in real time is an extraordinarily chaotic and demanding task. Unlike an official game, there are no commercial breaks, no instant replays on massive stadium scoreboards, and often multiple drills occurring simultaneously across different areas of the field. A tracker operating without a full production crew, spotting charts, or replay assistance can easily miss a play while taking notes, get confused by similar jersey numbers, or lose track of specific down and distance markers during fast-paced 2-minute drills. From this perspective, the error was simply an unfortunate, honest mistake made under the pressure of trying to deliver instant content to a hungry social media audience. While it is impossible to know with complete certainty what was going on in the mind of the person typing out that stat sheet, the reality of the situation remains unchanged. Whether the omission was born out of malicious intent or simply sloppy, undisciplined work, the real-world consequence for the player on the field is identical. When a young quarterback is fighting for his professional life in a hyper-competitive training camp environment, public perception is not an innocent byproduct. It actively drives the conversation in front offices, influences trade evaluations, and affects depth chart positioning. Modern NFL front offices may claim that they make decisions purely based on internal film evaluation, but coaches and general managers are human beings who operate in an echo chamber of media noise and public sentiment. A quarterback who is publicly portrayed as having a terrible, touchdown-free practice carries a completely different narrative weight into the following week than a quarterback who delivered 2 scores, including a vertical bomb that answered a veteran's trash talk. When media outlets publish numbers to hundreds of thousands of followers, they carry a profound journalistic responsibility to get the facts straight before hitting publish. Calling out sloppy reporting is not being overly sensitive. It is the basic requirement for keeping sports journalism honest and ensuring that athletes are evaluated on their true merits rather than fabricated shortcomings. The danger of unverified practice tracking lies in its ability to permanently crystallize false narratives in the minds of the general public. When a young player is already fighting against preconceived notions about his talent level, maturity, and work ethic, every negative stat line acts as confirmation bias for those who want to see him fail. Conversely, when his triumphs are quietly erased or downplayed, it prevents him from building the positive momentum necessary to win over skeptical evaluators and earn the trust of the coaching staff. This is why accuracy in sports journalism is not a luxury. It is a fundamental necessity that directly impacts human careers and organizational futures. As the debate between intentional bias and honest human error continues to rage across social media, One undeniable truth has emerged from this entire controversy. The margin for error for Shedeur Sanders is non-existent, and every single snap he takes at the professional level will be scrutinized with an intensity rarely seen in modern sports history. The stakes could not be higher, and the timing of this media breakdown arrived at the absolute worst possible moment on the NFL calendar. With a massive preseason game looming on the horizon, the pressure on the young quarterback is reaching a boiling point. This stat tracker controversy did not unfold in a vacuum during the quiet, forgotten days of early July. It erupted on the absolute eve of Sanders' second career preseason start against this very same Buffalo Bills team. The stakes surrounding these preseason snaps are monumental. In the modern NFL, the margin between winning a legitimate backup job or competing for a starting role versus being relegated to third-string obscurity or the practice squad comes down to a razor-thin collection of reps. Every throw on the practice field and every drive in a preseason game is scrutinized under a high-powered microscope by coaches, general managers, and pro personnel scouts across all 32 franchises. When young quarterbacks enter the league carrying the massive celebrity, commercial endorsements, and family legacy that Shedeur Sanders carries, the psychological pressure is multiplied tenfold. Every incomplete pass is instantly turned into a viral clip by critics waiting for him to fail, while his routine completions are often dismissed as easy, scheme-manufactured production. He has had to navigate an exhausting pre-draft process, endure sliding down draft boards, and constantly answer questions about whether his game could translate against complex NFL defensive schemes. Every single time he steps onto the field, he is carrying not just his own professional ambitions, but the weight of an entire cultural movement that has followed his journey from day one. In a competitive environment that intense, having your on-field achievements accurately recorded is the bare minimum expectation. When Sanders steps into the huddle against Buffalo this weekend, he is not just playing against 11 defenders across the line of scrimmage. He is playing against a mountain of preconceived narratives and external skepticism. A clean, explosive 50-yard touchdown against Buffalo's starting defensive backs during a joint practice should have been the headline building his momentum into this weekend's game. It should have been the play leading sports highlight reels across the nation, setting the stage for a highly anticipated rematch under the bright stadium lights. Instead, the conversation was unnecessarily hijacked by a manufactured controversy over a flawed stat sheet. But the true beauty of professional football is that when the stadium lights turn on and the opening kickoff flies through the air, the practice trackers, the social media arguments, and the press box opinions are completely silenced. The only thing that truly matters is what a quarterback does when the live rush is bearing down on him, the pocket collapses, and the game clock is ticking down. Preseason games provide the ultimate, indisputable testing ground where every snap is officially recorded, every yard is verified by league officials, and no informal tracker can alter the box score. The psychological resilience required to block out this level of external noise and perform at an elite level is what separates franchise quarterbacks from career backups. Throughout his collegiate career, Sanders demonstrated an uncanny ability to elevate his play in hostile environments and deliver his best performances when the spotlight was brightest. Heading into this weekend's clash with Buffalo, he has the rare opportunity to turn this entire media circus into personal fuel. If he can replicate the poise, deep ball accuracy, and command of the offense that he displayed during that joint practice, he will not only solidify his standing on the depth chart, but he will also render every misleading tracker completely irrelevant. The entire football world will be watching his every move, ready to dissect his mechanics, evaluate his decision-making, and judge his readiness for the regular season. The pressure is immense, the scrutiny is relentless, and the stage is set for a defining moment in his young career. But as we prepare for kickoff, the way the public responded to this practice controversy proved that an undeniable power shift is already underway in the sports world. The crowdsourced revolution has officially arrived, and it is changing the rules of sports reporting forever. To fully appreciate why this specific controversy represents a historic turning point in modern sports coverage, you have to understand the sophisticated mechanics behind the community note system that corrected the record. Unlike a standard comments section, where fans simply post angry opinions that can easily be dismissed as emotional bias, a community note cannot be published through raw numbers or brigading alone. The underlying algorithm requires a diverse consensus of contributors, users who historically disagree on various sports and cultural topics, to collectively evaluate and rate the proposed context as factually helpful and indisputably accurate. For a correction to officially attach itself to a major media post, it must clear an extremely high threshold of objective proof. In this instance, the community did not just complain. They uploaded timestamped video evidence, cited independent reporter confirmations, and provided undeniable visual proof that made it impossible for the platform to ignore the truth. The note acted as an impartial digital referee, stepping between a corporate media account and the public to declare that the published stat line was fundamentally incomplete and factually misleading. It proved that when ordinary fans are equipped with technology and visual receipts, they have the power to dismantle corporate sports spin in real time. This represents a massive, unprecedented victory for football fans everywhere. For generations, sports consumers were forced to accept whatever narrative legacy television networks and established beat writers decided to push. If a reporter chose to omit a player's best play or exaggerate a mistake, that story stood unchallenged in the public square forever. Today, the collective intelligence of an engaged, detail-oriented audience has completely broken that corporate gatekeeping. Fans are no longer passive consumers. They are active watchdogs who demand complete accuracy and hold media giants accountable to the highest standard of truth. This is the exact philosophy that drives everything we build here on Gridiron Ground. When you hit that subscribe button on Gridiron Ground, you are not just following another sports channel. You are joining a dedicated brotherhood of real football purists who demand film-based reality over corporate hype. Subscribing to Gridiron Ground connects your mind directly to the pulse of true gridiron analysis, where every play is broken down with surgical precision and no narrative is accepted without hard evidence. If you believe in holding sports media accountable and protecting the integrity of the game, take this moment to lock in with Gridiron Ground, turn on your notifications, and become part of the most knowledgeable football community on the internet. The crowdsourced revolution has fundamentally altered the balance of power between sports media and the audience. Beat writers can no longer rely on lazy tropes or publish half-baked stat sheets without facing immediate public fact-checking. The fear of being slapped with a permanent community note is forcing media outlets to double-check their notes, verify their sources, and treat practice tracking with the journalistic seriousness it deserves. This increased accountability benefits everyone involved in the sport, from the players whose reputations are protected to the fans who deserve accurate information. As digital platforms continue to evolve, the line between traditional media and independent sports analysts will continue to blur. The modern football fan is smarter, more analytical, and better informed than at any point in history. We have entered an era where visual evidence reigns supreme, and no corporate logo can shield sloppy reporting from public exposure. The community note on that practice tracker was not just a correction for Shedeur Sanders. It was a declaration of independence for sports fans everywhere. Because as we look toward what comes next, the ultimate conclusion to this saga will be written on the field. When you strip away all the social media noise, the defensive tweets, the laughing emojis, and the passionate fan arguments, The fundamental facts of this situation are completely settled and beyond dispute. The original practice tracker published an incomplete and factually inaccurate stat line that failed to reflect the true reality of what Shedeur Sanders accomplished on that field. The claim that he threw 0 touchdowns was objectively disproven by the videotape, confirmed by independent eyewitnesses, and permanently corrected by a crowdsourced fact-checking system that stands as a warning to anyone attempting to manipulate sports narratives. One of those scores may have had an early whistle, but the 50-yard vertical laser to Malachi Corley was a flawless, uncontested masterpiece that directly silenced an aggressive veteran defender who was actively testing the young quarterback's mental toughness. Whether that omission was the result of unconscious media bias or simply the chaotic difficulty of charting a fast-moving practice without proper resources, the lesson moving forward is absolute. We must never allow ourselves to accept unofficial practice numbers as gospel truth without verifying the underlying film with our own eyes. As Shedeur Sanders leads his offense onto the field for Saturday's massive showdown against the Buffalo Bills, the noise and the controversies will fade into the background. The game of football has a beautiful way of exposing the pretenders and validating the real workers. No stat tracker can make a throw for you, and no biased report can stop a 50-yard touchdown from hitting the receiver's hands when your preparation meets the moment. The tape will always remain the ultimate judge, jury, and executioner in the National Football League. When the live rush is coming, when blitz packages are disguised, and when game-deciding plays must be made on third down, reputation and media spin mean absolutely nothing. What matters is processing speed, pocket poise, arm strength, and the mental fortitude to execute under pressure. Sanders has demonstrated throughout his football life that he thrives when the doubt is thickest and the critics are loudest. Saturday's game represents the perfect opportunity to put this entire tracker controversy to rest once and for all with a dominant, indisputable performance on national television. For the fans who fought to correct the record, this controversy was a reminder of why vigilance and independent analysis are so vital in modern sports. For the media outlets covering the team, it served as an embarrassing wake-up call that sloppy reporting will no longer be tolerated. And for Shedeur Sanders, it was just another chapter in a long journey of proving his doubters wrong, one throw at a time. The stage is set, the receipts have been filed, and the entire football world is waiting to see what happens when the ball is snapped for real. We have covered every single angle of this controversy, from the viral community note and the sideline trash talk to the death of traditional sports gatekeeping. Now, the conversation turns entirely to you. Do you believe this tracker mistake was an intentional effort to control the narrative surrounding Shedeur Sanders? Or was it just another example of lazy, chaotic practice reporting that got caught in the digital age? Drop your full thoughts, your predictions for his performance against Buffalo, and your breakdown of the tape in the comments below. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to stay ahead of every major football story, and share this breakdown with anyone who still thinks that 0 touchdown graphic was real. Thank you for locking in with us, and we will see you on the very next film breakdown.